to your refrigerator, the hot tubs, to actually used as molds for braces, knee braces, and other orthopedic braces. When you get vaccines shipped or drugs shipped, or more fun, wine shipped, they are the insulation for the box. So an incredible number of uses. And to actually get the phones to perform in those conditions perfectly it turns out, very difficult. These foams were made using soy and castor and algae and other plant-based materials. They were all bio-based. And one of the critical pieces of this was that the foams that were in the market made of petroleum were very toxic. They off-gas toxic materials, and when they're heated, they really off-gas toxic materials. So if you think about your refrigerator or your television or a hot tub, you wouldn't anticipate those actually being toxic to you, but they are. So we worked very hard, I worked very hard to get the USDA in the US to certify the products. It was a very bureaucratic and unpleasant process, but we were successful. And we achieved awards from the composite materials, the plastics engineers organizations, and quite a number of other credible organizations. And we thought, okay, we're off to the races. We had zero emissions, and we were actually capturing carbon. And some of the products could be ground up and used to absorb things like oil spills or oil in a plant, and others could actually be composted. We had 4 main products with a million different applications. It was almost mind-boggling when you had to put priorities around them in terms of going to market. The first product that we went out to the market with was a foam for movie sets and places like Legoland or Disney. A lot of those are actually built from rigid foam. And the set makers are like sculptors. They take foam that's actually meant for insulation in the walls of a building, very toxic, and they shape it with their hands, and they create dinosaurs. Actually, I'll show you. They create dinosaurs, and they create buildings, and they create castles. And in the process, as they get into the later phases of their life, they develop a lot of health problems. And it's a very dangerous field. One of the fields you'd probably be more familiar with, wakeboards and surfboards. Same thing. Really, really dangerous field. That's the same foam they're using. It was never meant to be handled by humans. So we spent a lot of time with the shapers, and we had them use the foam. They loved it. They loved the way it shaped. It was actually a better performing foam than the insulation foam that was used in walls. It didn't create a lot of dust as well. It painted beautifully. And we got a lot of third-party endorsement from everyone from Disney through to a lot of the folks that did Jurassic Park, a lot of really famous people. And we created marketing around that, and that product began to move out to the marketplace. If you ever are in San Diego and you go to the Natural History Museum, there's a giant piece actually in the inside the museum. It's like a massive pediment, and it looks like it's stone. It's actually made of our foam. So if you ever go to see that, that's one of the products. So when we got out into the next 3 products, Inaflow, Pacific Biofoam, and Inacore, we began marketing to folks that were building roof tiles, because you could create high-performance roof tiles with solar in them that were very light, unlike the big clay roof tiles. And you could, as I mentioned, the boxes for vaccinations or wines or medical devices could be created out of it. This, the machine on the right side there is a brand new vaccination dispenser that keeps every vaccination at the right temperature and enables you to use a barcode, so you're dispensing the right vaccination for the right prescription, because a lot of mistakes happen in that field, believe it or not. We began to use the same messaging. We talked about safety, we talked about insulation, we talked about recycled content, we talked about no toxic fire retardants, and we went out to folks that were building large buildings for pharmaceutical companies and large buildings for manufacturing. You know, we did all the testing, we put the spec sheets together, and it turned out that none of those features were of interest to the industry. And it turned out that the marketing strategies that I was using were not reaching the decision makers. And so we sold nothing. So we, out of pocket, paid for hundreds of thousands of dollars of manufacturing, and we got distributors to stock, and we were paying for all kinds of campaigns, and no product was moving. And so we finally went and sat down with the distributors and really began to try to understand the buyers and what they might be interested in. And I also reached out to the industry route and reached to the trade publications and pushed past the salespeople's insistence that we buy email lists and we do email campaigns, and began to actually talk to some of the people that I showed you in the previous. I began to talk to these people. What do you read? When do you read? How do you consume information? How do you find out about new products? And what I discovered was there's a lot of downtime on the job site, and people actually read trade publications. They don't look at their phone. They don't look at email. They look at the ads for new products and new services in trade publications. And so I realized, okay, I've got to be running print ads, and I've got to be in the supplier directories, and I've got to be thinking in a much more traditional way than I think, and that you probably think in your generation. And it's expensive, of course. Email is so inexpensive. It's a wonderful strategy, but if no one's looking at it, it doesn't matter whether it's expensive or not expensive. So I began to buy space in the publications that the decision makers actually said they were reading. I went to job sites, I looked at what was lying out there, and I talked to some of these people, and there might be 20 publications, but they're reading 3. The rest go in the rubbish bin. So that was the first piece. The next piece was, what should the ad say? Because clearly what I was putting out into these materials was ineffectual. It turned out that the foam that they were using on these big projects was corroding the pipes. It was phenolic foam. It's the most toxic substance there is. They don't care. These pipes have to, in a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, they have to manage hot cold. Performance is the most important thing. And our foams would not corrode the pipes, and they were actually providing better performance than the phenolic foams, and they were cheaper. So I was with a bio-based product. Nowadays, natural products tend to not perform as well as the traditional ones. In this case, this darn product was actually performing better. They were trying it, it was. It was cheaper, and it was higher performance. So the recycled, clean, green, sustainable, all of that stuff went down to the bottom, and these factors came up to the top. I wish I had known that starting out. We lost 6 or 8 months because I didn't go out and ask the questions. So once we start going with it, and you can see here, it's all focused around performance, then I had a new problem. The distributors sold out overnight. Huge builders of these pharmaceutical buildings needed the foam and had a whole construction, project plan around that, and we didn't have foam to provide to them because we weren't prepared for the volume that they needed. So there again, that was another piece I learned in these traditional industries. When you're bringing out a new product that no one has ever experienced before, no one really has a sense of how popular it will be. And if it is popular, they expect you to turn on a dime and have the capital and ability to manufacture and deliver to their project schedules. And they're not sympathetic if you can't do it, because they've got a whole infrastructure of decision makers around them, a distribution network that they have to please. So customer discovery involves many different pieces of the business you can be creating. It's critical to your designing the next steps of this business that you're undertaking, and you can't ask enough questions. The more you know about your business and all the different factors that are involved and all the different players in the decision-making cycle, the stronger you will be in laying a framework for the business that you're creating. You're going to see this material, this chart and materials. This is part of this exercise, and it's really important to think about who's going to benefit from what you're bringing to market, who is going to be changed, inconvenienced, have to do things differently, and how are you going to deal with those kinds of people? What jobs is your product going to be undertaking for the marketplace? And then how are you going to address all of those positives and negatives as you get your product out to the marketplace? And this document will be an evolving document that you will add to and add to and add to as you learn more and more and you continue to roll out your product or your service. And it will be important to get your whole team thinking in this way so that they're also not simply focused on making a sale or doing their development of the app or whatever their job is. They're thinking back to how will that affect all of these people that we're touching by bringing this product out to the marketplace. So that is what I wanted to share with you. And I'd like to now ask each of you, I'm going to come back to the table and ask each of you to tell me what you're thinking in terms of who you're going to be talking to start understanding who your customers and who the influencers are as you bring your solution out to the world.